What's going on YouTube? This is ParkerLad88 coming at you with another video. Today I want to try something a little bit different. So in this card game that we play called Yu-Gi-Oh, there are just so many different cards that we use. There's so many different things that attracts us to them, via their artwork, how cool they are, or what their effects are, and things like that. So what I want to do is talk about my favorite cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But not just any ones. I want to talk about what my favorite cards are from each of the different franchises in Yu-Gi-Oh! So from the 5Ds era, the Zeal era, the Arc V era, GX, and of course the original Yu-Gi-Oh era. So without further ado, guys, these are going to be my franchise favorites. I hope you guys enjoy. So why don't we go ahead and get started with the most recent era of Yu-Gi-Oh, and that is the Arc V era. So what is my favorite card from the Arc V era, you ask? Well, I actually don't have one yet. The series hasn't been out for that long, and there hasn't really been a card out yet that has really stuck to me that I really enjoy. So yeah, I actually don't have one yet. So why don't we go ahead and move into the next era of Yu-Gi-Oh, that being Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal. So in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal, there was one monster that stood out to me. It was the one used by Shark. It was his number being number 32 Marine Fighting Dragon Shark Drake, as it was called in the anime. So this was a rank 4 monster that required 3 level 4 monsters in order to exceed summon into it. It's a Sea Serpent. It has 2800 attack and 2100 defense, and it has the following effect. So when this guy runs over a monster, you can detach 1 Exceed material from him in order to special summon back out the monster that you just ran over in attack position, and that monster loses 1000 attack. And if it does, this guy gets to attack again. So it's really good at just putting massive damage on board, or at least he was supposed to be back then. So he didn't have the greatest effects considering how hefty he was to summon, but that artwork on him was just so cool, and all the sequences where Shark used this guy was just so freaking awesome to me that I actually had to run this card in my deck, even if its effect wasn't all the greatest. And then that card just got even cooler when I found out that it got a Chaos Exceed form in the form of Shark Drake Vice. So Shark Drake Vice's ability is whenever you have 1000 or less life points, during either player's turn you can detach 1 Exceed material from him, and then you banish 1 monster from your graveyard, and then your opponent's monster's attack goes down to 0. So that effect was actually really powerful. And back when I was running my rocks and stuff like that, which I still kind of do, but just not as much, I ran this guy in the deck along with him, and I got that effect off a couple of times. One time against a 6 AM player, that was really awesome. So these were originally my favorite monsters in the Zeal era, but all that changed when one very special card made its debut in Shadow Spectre. I'm sure you guys can guess which one that is. It is, of course, the one, the only, the rank 8 Exceed, Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand. This is my true favorite card from the Zeal era. It is a warrior. It requires 2 level 8s in order to exceed summon into it because it is a rank 8, and it has 2800 attack and 1800 defense. So its effect is as follows. Once per turn during either player's turn, you can detach 1 Exceed material from this card and target 1 face-up monster on the field. This turn's effects are negated, and if so, it is unaffected by other card effects. So I thought this card right here was freaking amazing whenever I actually heard about it. Not only could you use the effect offensively, you could use the effect defensively, and I just love something out of this card. This, along with some other cards, is actually what got me to start playing Photons. And if a card like this, with its amazing artwork and everything, and its amazing effect, can get me to play an entire deck, then that really means something. And to this day, this was one of my absolute favorite cards. So next, let's go ahead and move into the Synchro era of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. So in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, my absolute favorite monster to use was none other than Arcanite Magician. So Arcanite Magician is a level 7 Synchro Spellcaster type monster that requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner Spellcaster type monsters in order to synchro summon into it. He has 400 attack and 1800 defense. So he has the following effect as well. Whenever this guy is synchro summoned, he gains 2 spell counters. He also gains 1000 attack points for each spell counter that's attached to him. He also has the additional effect of being able to remove 1 spell counter from any cards that you control in order to destroy 1 card on the field. So this synchro was amazing to me. As soon as I saw this card when Crimson Crisis came out, I was like, oh my gosh, synchro Dark Magician with an amazing effect. Not only on its summon can it dodge things like Bottomless, but the fact that it can just pop as many cards as it wants up to the number of spell counters on the field was pretty darn amazing. It had this awesome combo that you could do with Magical Exemplar. Since it gains 2, you can just keep on removing counters from her and just blowing up everything on your opponent's side of the field. And if that wasn't enough, it had an Assault Mode Activate form. And then, when I thought the hype couldn't get any better, it got a fusion form as well in Star Strike Blast. So the whole Arcanine family, I had a deck that was centered around all this that I loved for the longest time. When Prophecy and stuff came out, and I heard about all the new Spellcaster support, I wasn't thinking about running like High Priestess and all that nonsense. Now I was thinking about, ooh, I can actually run like a more awesome version of this guy. And the fact that he actually has a place in my Chagall deck means that I never have to stop playing my favorite synchro in the game. So let's take another step backward into the Fusion era with Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. So my favorite card from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX spawned my favorite deck in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm sure you guys know what it is. I just did a deck profile, and that is Elemental Hero Neos. So Elemental Hero Neos is a level 7 warrior monster that has 2500 attack and 2000 defense. He is a new elemental hero from space that when he combines with his Neo-Station friends, his real powers become unleashed. So I actually have a lot of history with this deck. This was one of the decks I played before I truly started getting into the actual card game itself. So back when I was around about in high school, I had a Nintendo DS and I would just play the games online. And then something, I don't know what it was, but it drew me to this deck, and I started playing around with it. And I enjoyed the deck so much because it was challenging, but it was also very rewarding at the exact same time, like trying to figure out a way to get around all these fusions and their drawbacks, and still being able to abuse their effects and whatnot. And this is my absolute favorite deck, as I told you guys before, in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! He has a great deal of support, and just using him and the Neo-Stations in order to do like craziness, it was just so much fun. So much to the point that this was the first deck that I actually made when I actually got into the game. So last but not least is the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. And as I've stated in some of my other videos, you guys can probably guess what my absolute favorite card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And in the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Era is. It is none other than Red Eyes Black Dragon. So from the minute that I saw Rex play this card, I was like, this is the most amazing card I have ever seen. So I didn't like Blue Eyes initially when it came out. I'm actually naturally deterred from outwardly overly powered cards. The fact that this dragon was known as the Dragon of Potential and all of its other forms were so much cooler to me, like Red Eyes Metal and Red ND and all of its fusions. I was like, this card is so freaking awesome. So much to the point that I cannot wait for all of the new Red Eye support to come out, so much to the point where I built a deck around this, where I actually eventually have to show you guys that deck before all the new stuff comes out so that I'm not considered fraudulent or anything like that. But no, I absolutely love this card to death. This will always be my favorite monster in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! No matter how many other different cards come out. And so much to the point where I like to collect like all the assorted Red Eyes cards, as many as I can get my hands on, as you guys can see here. Just want to show these off to you real quick. Got my Black Skull Dragon, the original, got my Misprint one, and then Meteor Black Dragon. I really hope we get a retrained version of this with the new Red Eye support. So guys, that was everything. Those are all of my favorite cards in each of the franchises of Yu-Gi-Oh! So now I want to hear from you guys. What are some of your guys' favorite cards from each of the assorted eras? I'd love to hear your comments, and I'll be back at you later with future videos. This is Parker Lad, out.